is enough.
I want the world to be the best place for my children.
You are not alone.
We need renegades to be part of this movement, and they're the ones that are going to change the world.
Welcome back to Renegade Radio, the podcast dedicated to the dissenters of the status quo, bringing you the mindset and strategies to build a healthier, happier, and stronger family, the Renegade way.
It's so important to be a renegade.
Welcome back to another episode of What's Up Wednesday. Good day, TRF listeners. Our special guest today on the Renegade Family is Naomi Pearce, who I like to call an everyday renegade, a wife, mother of four, who has made some discoveries and transformations in her own journey to a healthier, happier, and stronger family. So, welcome to the show, Naomi. I've just told our listeners just a little snippet about you, but was hoping you could just tell us more, not only, kind of who you are as a person, but just kind of your journey through motherhood and in discoveries you've made along the way to protect and grow your family's health. Kind of how did you end up where you are today, I suppose?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it all started for us about 4 to 4.5 years ago. We were living on the Sunshine Coast, and my family and I, we moved to Toowoomba. At that stage, we had 3 boys, and our middle child, he was just kind of always constantly sick. When we got to Toowoomba, we kind of noticed that, that it was just always battling something, whether it was tonsillitis or a virus or a cold or whatnot. But he was just kind of different to the other 2. So while we were there, we decided to go to the doctor, as any kind of, I guess, normal mother would want to go sort of seek out advice.
Of course.
And at that stage, we were just doing just what I guess most families do. We had vaccinated. We had, gone to see the doctor. Whenever there was a sickness, we would take their advice, and whether it was, prescription of antibiotics or whatever it was at the time. And that's sort of what we had done with him for about 6 months. We went and saw several different doctors. We were constantly sort of given this sort of same answer every time, which was, oh, he's a little boy, little boys get sick, here's some antibiotics, etc. And we just didn't get anywhere with him. He actually probably got worse over time. And I just knew, probably just in my gut and in my heart, that there had to be something more. That the other 2 boys, they were fine, they were healthy. It was just our middle child, he just wasn't overcoming it. So that kind of led us on a bit of a journey to kind of, I guess, getting some answers that the doctors just weren't able to give us. I asked specifically at the time a couple of doctors, could it be diet related? They kind of laughed at me. I requested blood tests. They wouldn't take them. So a colleague of my husband and I's at the time suggested that we went and saw a chiropractor that he was seeing in Toowoomba. And they also did a bit of kinesiology and sort of things like that. So we thought, well, we've got nothing to lose. We're a little bit skeptical. We were never really sort of open to any of that.
Sure.
But sure enough, we went along. And within the first 10 minutes of our consultation, our chiropractor said, look, he's gluten intolerant, he can't have refined grains, he's dairy intolerant, he's can't have processed sugars, etc., etc., etc. So she gave us this big long list of things to kind of start cutting out of his diet. Again, my husband and I were a bit like, oh yeah, all right, well, we'll give it a go. And sure enough, we did. We were committed to it. We said, okay, we'll give it 2 weeks. We'll see if it makes a difference. And it was literally like we had traded our child in for another version. The difference was unbelievable. For the first time, it was a bit personal, but for the first time in probably his whole, I think he was about 3.5 at the time, he did a proper poo. He was always constipated.
Yeah.
And it became a real problem. And
Sure.
I remember that first time I just cried and cried and cried, and it was really exciting. So that kind of opened up our whole, I guess, mind to, okay, there's more to this. There's more to health than what the doctors are actually telling us. So yeah, that's sort of how our journey began, I suppose, to I guess a journey towards holistic health. I started on a bit of a reading and research rampage.
Yeah.
Ended up going to study, I guess the whole kit and caboodle, but yeah, it's really transformed our life, and I'm just, as much as he was sick, I'm thankful that he was. So we got to really experience, the differences in approach and what really works for us and as a family now, and learning more about taking control of your health and so that's kind of, I guess, how our journey began. Now I'm able to offer all our family just really good health, holistic health practices now.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Naomi. That story you're just telling, I would tell you that there's probably millions of families going through the same thing and are just running into a wall, and they're sitting there nodding their head listening to your various stories. So hopefully, listeners, if you're out there and you're having a similar challenge with one of your kids or maybe yourself, I'm sure you would hear from Naomi and myself just to be open-minded, start looking around, take your health into your own hands, because while there are some great doctors out there, they don't have all the answers, particularly if they're mainstream educated in medicine. That's the box that they operate out of. And they don't always stick their head out of that box to see, well, maybe there's a different way or a root cause. So thank you so much for sharing that, Naomi. That's powerful. And imagine too, well, maybe it's not a great thing to imagine, but had you not found that path, had that person not referred you, even though you went reluctantly or a bit skeptically, which is okay. That's okay. I mean, skepticism's okay. Keeps you on your guard. But had that not happened, you'd probably still be snowballing in the wrong direction. So it's really a blessing that happened. I would think that's fantastic. And how long ago was that when you first went to the chiropractor that helped with your nutrition?
Yeah, sure. I think 4 years ago now.
Okay.
So 4 years we've had just totally changed our lifestyle, and particularly diet, but not just diet, but in sort of every sort of sense.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. So over the next 4 years, obviously things don't necessarily happen overnight, but you kind of keep learning and making tweaks and adjustments based on what's kind of revealed to you, and obviously through experience you see, hey, this is working really well. And then you probably end up start talking to other people who are like-minded and go, yeah, this is what's worked really well for us. So, over those 4 years, what you like mentioned nutrition and other changes. What were some of the changes that you made that, other parents or even for themselves might want to be thinking about and looking further into?
Yeah, sure. Look, I guess in every aspect, nutrition was definitely the first point of call, just with diet changes, and that had an effect on all of us. Even definitely my husband and I. But then I guess as far as our children went, we researched and looked more into whether we were going to continue vaccinating or not. Okay, yeah. We had spoken to other parents in both camps, I suppose. It was a decision that was, I guess, really hard for us. We didn't want to take it lightly. And I guess it's hard, I think, like with those kind of decisions, there's so much fear around it.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And I think, working out of that fear-based sort of mentality, it's really hard to come out of that. And for us, it was a pretty big step to decide, not to vaccinate, because, there is all that pressure, not just from doctors, but unfortunately the government.
Sure, yeah. And by the way, for our listeners, Naomi she mentioned Sunny Coast. This is in Toowoomba. This is in Queensland, Australia, in case you're somewhere else in the world. So totally understand, Naomi. And as you're talking about this, what was the impetus or the, if you will, renegade moment where you said, I need to investigate this? Was there something that came to you, or somebody said something and you said, maybe we should look at this as well?
Yeah. Look, I don't think it was exactly what anyone actually said, or even the information presented to us. I think it was just really, I guess, for me as a mother and a wife, I felt it was really important to find out what was really true for us as a family, and where our values sat with all of that. So I think it was more of I guess that real gut heart thing where you just know, well, actually, all my other values and what I really believe in aren't actually really totally aligning with that.
Yeah, so there's some incongruencies. Would that be the right word? There's some you feel and believe in certain things, but you're acting maybe out of congruency with that. And
that's right. Yeah. Felt that in the case of vaccinations.
Okay.
And I think in saying that, again, that wasn't solely how our decision was formed. We still needed to be well informed and
absolutely.
And the research that we were reading was both sides. Like, it wasn't. I didn't want to be biased, on one side or the other. I wanted to have a really open mind about it.
Gotcha.
But at the end of it, for me, the decision, I guess, initially it was sort of hard, but then it became really easy because I think, the more that I learned about the body and how, we are made and designed.
That's right.
Well, I mean, really, at the end of the day, we've been, as a human species here in this world for a very long time without vaccinations, and I think our bodies are designed to actually heal themselves and etc. And nature actually provides, what it is we need to overcome illness and protect ourselves to build our immunity, I suppose, naturally. And that's the approach we ended up taking.
Well, good for you. Let me just congratulate you for one, just in the sense that, that is an uphill battle, and you probably have friends and family and health professionals that are, in contrast to your decision, and you stuck with it based on your own unbiased research, what your heart and your values tell you. So congratulations. That's awesome. And you have 4 children, correct? And one of them, the youngest, is how old now?
Well, she's 5 weeks old.
5 weeks old. Wow. Okay. So you're a busy mom. And so with the 4 children, did you vaccinate some of them and not describe that maybe a little bit, or what have you noticed between them?
Well, actually, that's really interesting because every time they get sick, Andrew and I, my husband is Andrew, we kind of have a bit of a laugh about it. Not that you want to make...
Sure, I understand.
make it lighter. Anyway, so our oldest is 8 and he's been fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
And then we have a 6.5-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they've been vaccinated up to 1 or 2 years of age. Okay. And that's when, we started rethinking things and etc. And so our newest edition, she, her vaccinations are due next week, but we won't be going ahead with them. And so I can't speak too much on, on our little baby girl because, she's still so little. But
yeah, sure.
The 3 older ones, we found it really interesting that, when they're struck down with, a bit of a cold or flu or whatever it is, the quickest to bounce back or hardly get anything is actually our youngest. And the one that gets knocked down and for the longest period of time is our oldest. And he's the one that's been fully vaccinated. So I find that. Yeah,
it's an interesting correlation, isn't it?
It
interesting
is.
Correlation. Well, okay. So for our listeners, you may have some, it's a tough topic. It's very polarizing, and people get very emotional about it. And at the end of the day, as parents, we all want the same thing.
Yes.
So whether someone's for or against, on the fence, with that regard, we all want the same thing. We want a healthy, happy future for our children and future generations. So we all want that. Yes. So it kind of bothers me that people throw stones one way or the other. It's just, let's just kind of be objective about it, and we all want the same thing.
Yeah. So
to the parents that are listening, Naomi, that maybe they are a little bit on the fence, or what advice would you give them? If they're thinking, well, I should get some more information, where do they even go to get that information? Obviously, they can go to their doctor, but that's usually a one-sided information. Fair enough. So is there other resources, or what would you recommend?
Oh, my goodness. There's so much out there. I'm trying to
just have a look around. You'll find it.
Well, yeah, there's a website called FMTV, and they've got some amazing documentaries on their database.
Yeah, is that Food Matters?
Yeah, so
yeah, Food Matters, sure.
Yeah. But no, some of the documentaries that they've got there are just, what's presented is really good quality research, which I thought, for me, that was really important. I didn't want just somebody's opinion, or a random theory, and that's a hard thing. These days you go online and you're bombarded with information, and a lot of it can just be someone's opinion or someone's theory, and it could be fantastic, and it might be absolutely correct, but I think it's still really important to make sure you're getting good quality information from professionals. So I guess, the information that you are reading or you're watching, just to know, where that's coming from,
Right.
Whether they're, credible people. And that goes both sides as well, because I know at the time when we were making these decisions, other family members wanted to, put their 2 cents worth in and would try and show us, clips and all this sort of stuff on, the other side.
Sure.
But it wasn't like what they were presenting wasn't credible at all. So it goes both ways.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it does seem to kind of boil down to really deep-seated beliefs, and
Yes.
even if you're presented with logic and science, if your belief is so deep-rooted, you kind of, the curtains go over logic, or can anyway.
Yeah.
And refuse to. It's like called cognitive dissonance. I think you don't even look at all the options in front of you because your belief is so strong in one direction that you don't see the other directions. You don't even acknowledge them. Is that kind of what you notice with some of your family?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So if there's other people out there who are making similar choices or thinking about that, what advice would you give them if they're receiving, if they're getting opposition from friends or family or pressure? Can you give them any advice as to how to best handle or cope with that situation?
Yeah, to be honest, we've copped that quite a lot, and it's like, it's really hurtful, to be honest, and unfortunately, we can't control other people, but I guess for me, I sort of think back to, we had quite a conflict between family members, unfortunately, and it's caused a rift, and that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions and things, but I think it took me actually a long time to sort of get over it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think for me now, like, what I've learned is, well, everyone at the end of the day needs to do what is true for them, and everything that we do needs to align with that truth. And if that's what you're doing, and if that's how you're living, well, then it's actually nobody else's business. And it can be really hard because, there's feelings and emotions and all of that involved, particularly with loved ones. But at the end of the day, I needed to really separate myself from that and go, okay, you know what? I'm doing what's right for me and my family, and it's none of their business. It's actually, if they're upset by it, that's their issue. And whatever they think of me, that's actually none of my business either. Because, and I think we just have to take ownership on our own stuff. And it's hard. It takes, I think, a while to get to that point because it can really hurt. But at the end of the day, I think we just need to learn to respect each other and acknowledge that everyone has the right to their own beliefs or opinions about things. And, you
nailed it on the head, Naomi. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that that's what concerns me most is that you just said that everybody deserves to make their own opinions for their own health and their family's health. And I guess the bigger issue is that those rights are being slowly taken away, or they're trying to. So those who are listening, I would suggest that we almost even look at the bigger picture of because what's next, right? It's like they're telling you what you should be injecting into your bodies, and So that's a whole nother podcast probably, but but yeah, I think that people need to at least have the right to be informed, number one, and based on that information on both sides, both camps, if you will, they should be able to make their own decisions and align with their values. So thank you for sharing. I know there's people that are listening to this that can relate in some way, or maybe they're going to be going down that path, and they can use your story to help them overcome their own challenges. So that's fantastic. So a little birdie told me, Naomi, just kind of switching gears a little bit, that you getting really into nutrition and lifestyle, that you were looking to start a new business or something like that. Was it Blissful Bellies?
Yeah, that's right. So I have been running Blissful Bellies. I have taken a bit of a break, but really excited to relaunch it in the next few months while, as I sort of settle and transition into life with a newborn again. So Blissful Bellies, we'll be relaunching the website pretty soon. And, and that's all about, I guess, supporting everyday people like myself, and making those sort of changes in just such a basic sense. I found that when I was, changing our eating habits, I was so confused. There just seemed to be so many different ideas about what was healthy and what was not, and lots of conflicting information, let alone all the different marketing tactics, products sort of throw at you and all of that. So, I guess in my journey, I went off and studied. I wanted to, be, I guess, qualified in being able to give other families advice. And so now, I'm able to do that and love being able to do that, because I know what a difference it's made for our life as a family, and I want that for other families. Absolutely.
Thank you, Naomi. I mean, that's why we started even this podcast, is we've had our own experiences. I have two young children and a family, and what's possible. As a chiropractor, we've been going down this path for a number of years now, and we just know what our reality is, and we see the majority of other families, their reality is not like ours at all. And you start thinking, well, how can I reach them? How can I help them? Because it's really not that complicated. You know what I mean? It's actually a few simple shifts in thinking and a few simple shifts in what choices we make, and the outcome can be phenomenal. Like your 3-year-old boy had a total turnaround, and we see that in our practice and in the community all the time when people make changes. So I think it's really cool and very, bravado of you to take it upon yourself to learn more so that you can be a light and a beacon to other mums and families with that. And for our listeners, I know the website's not up yet, but they can probably, can they link in just to get a notification when you're up and running?
Yeah, so it's blissfulbellies.com.au, and we're also on Facebook, and it's Blissful Bellies Australia.
That is super cool. And by the way, TRF listeners, we will have a page dedicated to our chat today with those resources just mentioned. If you go to therenegadefamily.com, there'll be a dedicated page there. So thank you so much. So Naomi, we've kind of come to the point in our show I like to refer to as the Renegade Wrap-Up. And by the way, you're a total renegade, right? That's a good thing. We need more renegades because the people that are doing things differently, just like you've just pointed out a good example, be it their choices around vaccination, their choices around diet, or just how they live in general, it's just not mainstream. It's not what's quote-unquote accepted or status quo.
Yeah.
But you'd have to agree when you look at the majority who are living that way, I mean, can we say that they're vibrantly healthy? I would say absolutely not, right? And are they vibrantly happy? And so on. It just snowballs, and we just know it's possible. So thank you for being a renegade, and I know with your help we'll lead some others to become renegades for their own family. So let me just wind down with a few other questions for you. Regarding, we'll just kind of broadly say health, happiness, or prosperity. What was the best advice you've ever received, and how do you think our listeners could apply that to their own life?
That is such a hard question.
There's so many things.
So much good advice out there. I think what I will say is, so recently I was just watching an interview between Melissa and Jason Warkobe. I hope I pronounced that right. He's the founder of Mind Body Green, and he had something awesome to say in that interview, and it was all about choosing the middle ground, and I could relate so much to that, and I wish I sort of had that advice at the beginning of my journey. So what he meant by that was, he was sort of saying there's sort of two sorts of people. There's the ones that it's like all for nothing, all or nothing, or they're sort of all talk and a bit lazy and actually doing what they're saying they're going to do. But it's sort of about finding that middle ground, like finding, okay, well, how does it complement my lifestyle? So it's not, you're not going too hardcore and everything kind of comes undone around you. And I think that's what I found at the beginning of my journey is I just went on this psycho rampage of like, okay, this is how we're going to eat, and we're not eating that, and da-da-da-da-da. And I sort of was too extreme. And then, because the moment that I may have let, a bit of sugar come into the house or something like that, it was like, that was the end of the world. And I would sort of go on this big spiral and go, oh, well, what's the point of it? I can't keep it up, if that makes sense. So I think it's about finding that middle path of, okay, you know what, these are my non-compromises. This is, what I'm aiming to achieve. But, in the areas of A, B, and C, I can compromise on that by doing this.
Yes, that makes total sense to me. And I'm sure our listeners are picking it up. So, like in our house, I agree. Like we have a child with some sensitivities, so there's some things you can't compromise there. They can't eat that or have that, which is fine. But then there's areas, there's birthday parties or whatever, and you can compromise and have a treat. So, it's often called the 80-20 rule, right? Or better is 90-10. So you put all your good stuff in that 80 or 90, and you have your treats and your birthdays and your moments. That I think most people can live with that.
That's right.
So I think it's a great point and something for our listeners to take into account when they're on this journey. Don't I went to a birthday party and had a cupcake. I'm the worst person ever now, and everything's ruined.
So might as well not wake up in the morning.
Yeah, might as well not even work out now.
Right. Yeah. So for us, I was trying to make absolutely everything from scratch. But, when you're a busy mum with, 3 crazy kids that, have all these different sport commitments and school commitments and blah, blah, blah. Plus then you throw a newborn into that, you need to realize, okay, well, I can't do it all, and that's okay. And I think, just being able to, let that just naturally unfold is fine. And we can't keep putting all that pressure on ourselves to being 100% perfect because, it's... Yeah, none of us are.
Yes, and that's a very a comforting statement too, because I think that's a lot of parents are beat themselves up a little bit about in that arena. It's all or nothing, but eating a donut doesn't cancel out the nutrition that was in a carrot. It's not either or. You can, So along those lines, if to our listeners, if they're thinking, well, what's one simple change that would have an impact on my family that I could just start today that's not so overwhelming? Do you have like one thing that you said, oh, in the beginning, if we would have just done this, that would have been a great place to start?
Oh, okay. Trying to think. So with clients, I can't remember what I did back then. With clients, I sort of suggest just like one thing a week they can just start sort of substituting. Like, so every shop they do, they don't have to go in and like clean out their whole pantry and replace everything straight away. But I would sort of start with like, say, vegetable oil, like the cooking oils that they might use.
Yeah.
Or margarine, for example. A lot of people are still sort of under that false belief that margarine is healthier.
Yep.
I would, sort of start there with those, simple, and they're pretty cheap as well.
Okay, great.
To start replacing, margarine with butter, or, instead of using vegetable oil, using, a good quality olive oil or coconut oil or something like that. So so they're just little things, I suppose. Or then, yeah. Yeah,
no, that's great. And that just goes right along with, we don't want to tell you 10 things, listeners, because it's like, well, it's too much. So little things at a time, that's a great idea too. Just one thing a week.
Yeah.
So is there an invaluable resource, like a book or a website that was just invaluable to you that you would recommend? So our listeners might be thinking, well, where do I go get more information? Obviously, we'll have a link to your website, but is there something that along your journey that you're like, oh, that was a great read, or this is a powerful website?
Yeah. So Mind Body Green has got so much resource on there. So that was a great website. Food Matters was also a great website.
Yeah, okay.
Also, Changing Habits. For me, that was... I think I like them so much because they're locals on the sunny coast here. So they were great as well. So
beautiful. That's great. Well, that gives our listeners somewhere to go. And again, listeners, I'm going to put links and resources to everything about today's chat on therenegadefamily.com. Well, in closing, Naomi, is there any parting words you'd like to leave to our listeners? Putting you on the spot again.
No. No, I just want to encourage everybody just to, just think it's not, it can be a scary place to sort of start, rethinking, maybe the way that you've done things for so long. But it's definitely, I think, I just encourage you to take your health and your family's health into your hands. And just to start asking questions. If you have that sort of gut churning kind of moment and you think, that's just doesn't seem kind of right, then, follow that intuition and follow your heart with those things and just to be open-minded.
That is sage advice, Naomi. Thank you so much. That's a simple value bomb, and I think that we forget to listen to we'll just call it the voice, God speaking to you, your gut speaking to you, and we kind of suppress that sometimes. So that's great advice. Thank you so much. Well, Naomi, I must say I have truly enjoyed speaking with you today. You certainly inspired me just with your journey and your experience, and I'm sure, I'm confident that our listeners today have taken away heaps of value, and you've given them some empowerment to make some changes on their own. It's really great. Awesome. And again, listeners, you can go to therenegadefamily.com and there will be a dedicated page to today's episode with all the links mentioned and resources there. Naomi, I want to thank you again so much, and congratulations, by the way, on your latest edition.
Thank you.
I know you're going to grow and raise a beautiful, healthy family. And thanks for sharing today, making a difference.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I love you, Daddy.
We're counting on you.
My mom is a renegade.
Thanks for tuning in to Renegade Radio. If you haven't yet done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Also, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TRFTribe. Please email us your questions for FAQ Friday and we'll do our best to answer them in a future show. Simply email us at faq@therenegadefamily.com. If you got value from this episode and know someone else that would benefit from it as well, please share it with them.
Changing the world is going to start in your house. This is Dr. Todd, and from my family to yours, we wish you all the best. God bless, and we'll catch you soon.
Renegade, man up!